Welcome to the Women Arise podcast. I'm joined today by Lynn Heady, a dear friend and colleague in the Triumph Over Trauma work. Lynn, how are you this morning?
I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day, and what could be better, right?
Yeah. And I've been reading about Rosh Hashanah, and I know that you've just come out on the other side of it. So I want to say Happy New Year. I don't know.
I've had a house full of family, which is what it's all about. And so it's been a wonderful holiday so far. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, so Lynn Heady has worked with me and many others on the Triumph Over Trauma package, the bundle that's available at triumphovertrauma.info. And Lynn, you wrote at the beginning of the Jewish Context Supplement, you wrote, the Jewish people are familiar with crisis and trauma on three levels: cultural, community-based, and personal. This is something that is not just ingrained, and I'm leaving what you've written to just comment. This is something that is rooted generationally in people of Jewish descent and practice and faith. And as we talk about the Triumph Over Trauma curriculum today, I know that we will be integrating the Jewish Context Supplement, some of the lessons that you have learned through this process. But I want to go ahead and dive into, like, where do you see this type of mainstreaming of psychoeducational resources helpful in your work and your focus?
Well, I'm going to look at it from a variety of work that I'm involved with right now. Let me start with something very general that I'll briefly touch on. I work with a group called Braver Angels, where we are trying to help people deal with the unrest and crisis and chaos in our world. And often we hear of so many people that are dealing both with personal crisis that gets layered with what's happening in our environment. So I think there is an audience there that I am so excited to share this with, and for them to know that there are good people like you and others who are out there working in this realm and really want to be welcoming and helpful to folks who are in that situation. Through my work with a group called Spiritus, of which you are a member as well, excuse me.
It's okay.
We are dealing with issues that transect culture and religion. On a weekly basis, we discuss things. And one of the issues that surfaces continually in our discussions is around the whole gun debate, not just gun violence or gun legislation or any of the things that we so concentrate on, but the effects that it has on us both religiously and culturally and through our traditions. And so we have started a little mini initiative within there where we're going to have a community-wide book read, a book discussion, in which we're going to explore a book called Children Under Crisis.
Under Fire.
Under Fire,
yeah.
American Crisis, which is not political, but looks at this whole phenomena through the eyes of what's happening to our children.
Yes.
We're talking about the effect of gun violence, not only in school shootings, which are the things that most of us are exposed to and hear on a regular basis, but also the day-to-day kind of gun violence that occurs in inner city neighborhoods, in poverty pockets, both rural as well as urban. Suicide, that's another tremendous source of crisis.
Mhm.
And so where I see this being so important, and where I think all of this can go and can have a tremendous impact, is once we have these book discussions and we unearth the kinds of crises that children are going through, that their families are experiencing.
Mhm.
Because, you know, what really struck me in reading the book was it's just not the 17 children who were shot and died at Uvalde, but it's the 450 other children in that
Yeah.
school who are affected. It's
Mhm.
their families, it's their preachers, it's
Yeah.
the law enforcement agencies.
Mhm.
So this crisis is huge. And I think triumph over trauma, Neely, you and I talked about this at the beginning. I'm always asking the question, let's do this book discussion, but what comes next?
What comes
Is it
next?
just to do a book
Yes.
discussion? Is it enough to talk about polarization at Braver Angels? Is it enough in my synagogue to go to a Torah study and read parts of our Torah and what
Mhm.
they mean to us?
Mhm.
Everybody leaves those events with a set of unopened or unexplored needs. And I
Yes.
think that's what Triumph Over Trauma will do, is meet them there and say, okay, you've opened a door. Now here's some help. And there's a
Yes.
community out there that's ready, willing, and able to help you with this.
Yes, and that book, Children Under Fire, is really an important read, and it can be very difficult as a read. I mean,
Yes.
it's just hard. It's a hard subject, but I think that when we rise up above, like, okay, we've got these gut feelings, we've got this sadness, this feeling of being overwhelmed, and what can I do? When we allow ourselves that space to come in and go into that dark space and see the effects, and how it's not just a bullet in a person, it is the trauma that ensues in all of those who care for that person, who were positively impacted by their lives. It's also about the shooter's parents and family.
Exactly.
It's looking at trauma at kind of a higher level to see, okay, what ensued following the shooting. And then with Triumph Over Trauma, we think not only can it be a responsive mechanism to help people cope with the trauma that they feel after a shooting, but in my deepest dream, it is also helping people recognize the signs and symptoms of trauma before a shooter gets to the gun and
Yes.
does this thing. Because I think we're often unconscious, aren't we, about why we are doing the things that we are doing. What is the motivation behind it? Am I hurting? Am I angry? Am I feeling powerless? And once you can rise above those feelings and identify them and say, oh, this is what I'm feeling right now. Okay, this is a thought. I don't have to spiral with that thought and let it bring me to really negative actions where myself and others will be hurt, but that I will be able to actually look at choices that I have before me. And so I think, like, it's a great combination what you and I are doing, because it does, when you read a book like Children Under Fire, you do feel either helpless or hopeless unless you've got something that you can physically do to make a difference. So
I want to respond to one thing you said that really I hadn't thought of,
mm,
and it's brilliant, because I really believe you're right. This is a very hard read. I heard you say that. I felt it. I had to put down chapters after I
Yes.
read them and have a good cry, or just wring my hands, whatever it took. But I think the comment you just made, that this book increases awareness that there are people out there that we need to see the symptoms that they may cause this kind of crisis. And that if we truly believe this is just an awful thing that one has to go through, then having our radar up and understanding that that person, that shooter, is under crisis.
Exactly.
That shooter is going through an unimaginable trauma in their life to get them to that point. That doesn't just happen one day.
It
And
doesn't.
so, yeah, so that aspect of this curriculum, of this approach, again, I hadn't thought, but it really can extend down so much deeper, which is why we felt like this was a worthy thing to do through our Spiritus group, because Spiritus is a coalition of lay leaders and clergy. And
Yes.
what better place for that supportive system to be intact than within a religious organization? What better place to openly discuss this book? And then what better place to have a resource handed to you, training handed to you, that says, now that you've opened that door for some of your congregants, here is a way that you can help them. It's just, it's a wonderful, the circle of life kind of thing.
Yes, it is.
It's corny, but it just kind of opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is that there's lessons throughout it that even if you are not in a group, you can apply them individually, and you can also do them as a family unit and walk through some of these body mind activities. For you wrote the Jewish context supplement, and so I'd like to go into a little bit of discussion around that and how you felt like, I mean, how did your insight become enriched by moving from, okay, the core Tamar is not religious at all. And so you added this layer of what does this session look like through the lens of faith? Can you talk about that and share any insights that you had?
Well, you and I both know when you first asked me, I was a little, I took my breath in and I said, that's a huge responsibility to kind of represent a large community in my religion. And so for me to, I love that you said that I did it, but I actually didn't do it. What I did was to pull together a very strong and cohesive group of individuals, religious leaders and sages within our community. And I asked them to help me with this and to help me understand. And so having walked them through the Tamar curriculum. And I did that by saying, here's what the sessions are. Here are the individual objectives and goals of each session. We even shared a couple of the exercises so that they could see kind of the feel that this wasn't just let's sit down and talk about it. These were explicit kinds of things that could be done. I felt that with them seeing those possibilities, it would spark them to think about how it might relate to the work they do daily within the Jewish religion. Interestingly, the first level at which we started talking about this, me individually with some of them, was on a very personal level, sharing stories. They were able to share stories with me of experiences that they had around trauma, that they either got help or they looked for avenues for help for their congregation. So it was either about them or it was about their congregants. So it was with open arms that the Jewish community embraced this. And so working with folks who look at the Jewish religion, not just through scripture, not just by being pulpit rabbis, but by being educators, working with children and adults in education, and also within the synagogue. And then also looking at the cantors or the musical directors. You know, the Jewish services are enhanced by chanting. And so there's always a cantor and a rabbi who lead a service. And in certain movements, like the Reform movement, of which I am a member, that music is really significant. Many of our prayers are said through music. And for many Jewish people, that's what they hear. Also, some of the readings that were suggested by these rabbis and educators really drilled down to those. You remember I said community, cultural, and personal.
Yes.
Able to add in some of those cultural crises and trauma situations, like the Holocaust, like shootings in synagogues. So we were able to add in some very relevant information on that level as well. Everything from, you know, some Holocaust prayers and poetry, which went so beautifully with the curriculum, which relies on tapping the arts, tapping poetry, to be able to bring those forward and supplement what we do. I've been president of our congregation actually twice, and so I've led the board and worked with our rabbis. And at the beginning of every single board meeting, we did a prayer, a blessing over, you know, thanking God for giving us this responsibility and trusting us to take good care of the people that were in our congregation. And so for them opening the general session for this and each individual session with a relevant prayer, it was a joy for them to be able to suggest. And then also, quite honestly, the songs that deeply touch us around issues of trauma.
So could you share a prayer, a song, something with us to kind of bring us more into that? I think
I love the opening prayer that was suggested. And when we start a service, the first thing we do is we light candles. We let in the light. That's basically what we're doing, so that we are illuminated, not only in God's presence, but in the presence of this holy space. And so we're suggesting that when these sessions get underway, that we begin each session with a candle lighting and a prayer. And I think this prayer, as suggested by one of our rabbis, is just perfect. It says, "Give ear, Adonai, to my prayer. Heed my plea for mercy. In time of trouble, I call to you. You answer me. When pain and fatigue are my companions, let there be room in my heart for strength. When days and nights are filled with darkness, let the light of courage find its place. Help me to endure the suffering and dissolve the fear. Renew within me the calm spirit of peace. Blessed are you, Adonai." And to me, that is the essence of what we're doing in the curriculum. I really do believe that. I think when one of the units is around when good things happen to bad people. So honestly, we have book clubs in all of our synagogues, maybe aligning the Diary of Anne Frank or Harold Kushner's book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. This is a good time to coordinate those pieces so that the folks get immersed in these kinds of activities. The Mi Sheberach prayer, which is a song, and I would sing it, but I won't because I would clear the room. But it's definitely a prayer that says, you know, heal us. Heal us from what we're going to. And it's a beautiful song. And we included that in the curriculum as well, because we felt like that was an important piece to do. And then many of the poetry, is continually stressed. Many of the Psalms, which are poetry, are continually offered. How long will you forget me, O Lord, forever? How long will you hide your face from me? In other words, help me. It's the plea for help, and it's okay to ask for it. And this is the time to ask. So those kinds of things are included as well.
That's really important because there is often a division between like a person of faith who believes God is going to help me. I'm going to pray to God. And then the person who couples that with faith in God and some kind of like body, mind, spirit activity, whether it is therapy, whether it is some kind of group, self-help or whatever. But I think sometimes I have seen people who've really struggled in my work with people living in poverty in Nashville. One person comes to mind who I tried to get her help for her depression and anxiety. And she just would always say to me, "No, I'm praying to God." And I would sit in front of her and talk with her about, look, I struggle with anxiety and depression. I'm on medication. And I remember the first time I told her that, she was shocked because she sees me as this person of faith. And I said, yeah, but we're bodies too, right? Like we've got the spirit within us, but our bodies need some kind of activity to get us going again so that we can live that abundant life or our best life. Do you see people that struggling with those things, like when they should couple, excuse me, couple faith with some kind of other type of response? Sorry for my voice. I'll drink some water when you start talking. But is there like any kind of struggle that you see between being faithful and like actually asking humans for help as well?
Yes, and on a personal level, my daughter is a therapist, and she deals with anxiety and depression, and mostly anxiety, any disorders that are related to it. And she has people who come to her who are very hesitant. They say to her, I believe in God, and I believe that will help things. And this was somebody pushed me to come here. I'm not sure I really believe I need to be here. And so she takes her time in affirming with them the relationship of those two pieces, that God would want you to get help as well. I think that's what I hear in our synagogue when people will confer with the rabbi and pour their hearts out and just say, I need help. Our rabbis believe a lot in meditation and some mind-body kinds of strategies, but they also make suggestions of individuals in the community who are attuned to the fact that this is very difficult for a person of faith to kind of take that extra step. And I think that the main reassurance is don't ever let go of that piece, but supplement. God would want you to take advantage of whatever is going to help you. And I think that's the attitude that I've observed.
I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that, because I think when you hear it from the pulpit, when you hear it from your faith leaders, it gives you permission to look at it differently. And the truth is, like we pray for our loved ones' health, but that doesn't bar them from going to the doctor.
Right.
We wouldn't we wouldn't think of it that way, but somehow with mental health, there's this whole stigma around it. So part of my hope with Triumph Over Trauma too is that by getting people within religious establishments talking about trauma and bringing things out from the secretive nature that it is often kept in, that the shame will start to dissipate around it, and people will understand that everybody's going through something. But often when we go into a house of prayer, we get dressed up outside, and then it's also that internal dress up of I can't let my real self show, because then people will know that I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not perfect. And so my prayer is that by talking about these things within houses of prayer, it will help people, give people permission to understand and to embrace that there is hope. And this doesn't mean that you are deficient in any way. It means that you are a living creature on the face of this earth, which is imperfect. And there is much to be repaired. So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You just reminded me that one of the reasons when the author comes in on November, is it 2nd or 5th? I should know this by heart, but one of the sessions is held in the morning, and we're inviting to a breakfast meeting clergy from all over the city, all kinds of clergy, those who are very tuned into what you just said, Neely, and those that are not. And our hope is by exploring this book, we're opening the door for those who wouldn't feel comfortable inviting their congregants to seek help outside, to see that that is an option as well, and that it doesn't negate what they're doing. So not all clergy that is not always the best place for people to get that advice. And we'd like to help that along as well.
Good. And I'm looking at the calendar. And so the Children Under Fire book discussion kickoff is Wednesday, November 2nd at Belmont University. Yes. And so that is a great opportunity. You are actually going to have the author present, right?
Yes, he's coming in. He's a Washington Post reporter. He's actually up for a Pulitzer Prize. So we're very honored that he's going to come and join us. He's going to do a session in the morning at Belmont with clergy, and we'll be inviting clergy. That's an invited event. The afternoon session will be with healthcare workers and counselors. And so we're soliciting, and I hope you'll give us some suggestions of folks who should be on that invitation list as well.
Yes.
Late afternoon, we'll be doing students from Belmont in certain classes and their professors. But in the evening, we're open to the community for an evening session, coffee and getting to talk with the author, and then the formal session. So anybody that would like to come can get more information by calling Belmont or by contacting me, and we'll make sure that we get all of the details to them as well.
That's great. And that's John Woodrow Cox, who will be leading, he will be talking about his book, Children Under Fire. Lynn, I want to thank you for participating in this podcast, but most of all for actually stepping in when I really wanted this to happen, having those basically a cross-reference for Tamar, so that people could integrate their faith, their prayers, their songs, those wonderful things, in addition to this this wonderful psychoeducational material. And it's when we pull together body, mind, spirit, all as one, that I think we are so much richer and fuller for it. So I want to
My
thank you for
pleasure,
this
and thank you.
conversation.
Yes, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
we're a good team. We're a good team.
We are indeed.
So we'll go ahead and sign off, but I do invite you to go to triumphovertrauma.info and you can download the free curriculum there. You can also sign up for training, which we are offering 2 times each month. And there is a schedule, a registration page on triumphovertrauma.info. You can also start receiving free daily messages of hope by texting the word hope to 615-933-5387. That's text the word hope to 615-933-5387. Lynn, thank you so much. And I pray that your new year is a blessed one for you and all you love.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.